Learning Japanese fast is a lot simpler than you think, and in this video I'm going to show you step by step exactly how I would learn Japanese if I could start over again. Hi, my name's Zeke. I speak French and Spanish and I've been learning Japanese by myself, self-study, for the past 3 years, and now I've reached about N2, N3 level, which is the equivalent of basic fluency. You know what? Let me just show you. 3年間勉強してます。
3年間でも日本人と変わらないぐらいじゃないですか。
いや全然そんなことない。
どうやってそんな流暢に。マジで僕今日本人と喋ってるって言われても全然おかしくないぐらいに。
So after learning 3 languages over the course of 3 years, I've refined my method for learning languages so much, and with all the mistakes that I made in my journey of learning Japanese, I know now I could do it in half the time that it took me originally. So let me share with you my experience and my advice to save you all of that time. Now, becoming fluent in Japanese is hard, but it's not complicated. So I'm gonna break this video into 7 stages. Number 1 being your reason for learning Japanese. Number 2, Hiragana, Katakana, and Kanji. Number 3, vocab. Number 4, the basics. Number 5, foundation. Number 6, speaking. And number 7, just some general tips on how I think you should learn Japanese. So starting off with your reason for learning, I think a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on this, but for me, it wasn't really a huge factor. I literally just wanted to learn Japanese. One of my friends spoke Japanese. I thought it was cool. I liked anime. I liked Japan. But I do agree that having a reason can be a super huge motivator and can keep you disciplined when things get tough. So if you like anime, if you like manga, if you want to watch anime without subtitles, then absolutely go ahead, learn Japanese. No matter what your reason is, learning Japanese is going to benefit you in so many different ways. Whether you want to learn Japanese to watch anime without subtitles, whether you want to read manga, whether you just want to go travel to Japan or live in Japan, this video is for you. And I know that there is a lot of kind of daunting parts about learning Japanese, whether it's kanji, the alphabet, all those thousands of Chinese characters. It does look really difficult and it can be very intimidating, but once you actually get started and you understand what it's for, what purpose it serves, I promise you it seems a lot more reasonable and it's not as scary as you think. So what can I expect when I start learning Japanese? First thing I want to say is don't compare yourself to anyone else's journey. Everybody's journey is different, but generally it takes about a couple years to reach fluency. Getting fluent in Japan is very hard. If we're just talking about conversational fluency, being able to have a conversation, kind of just hold your own in front of a real Japanese person and just have a normal conversation, I'd probably say you could achieve this in about a year. Now, this obviously depends on what your native language is. So for me, speaking English, learning Japanese is going to take me a lot longer, but if you speak Tagalog or something like that, then you will definitely be able to pick up Japanese quicker. Now, after 3 years of following this method that I'm going to show you in this video, I can now speak Japanese with no problems. I can have conversations. I actually went to Japan this year and I got to put my Japanese into practice and everything went super well and it was a great experience. So in terms of timings, what can you expect? Honestly, I'd be lying if I gave you a straight figure, but all I can tell you is that the more effort you put in, the quicker the results will be. If you put in an hour a day, you can probably expect becoming fluent in about over 3 years. If you put in like 3 hours a day, you could get fluent in as quick as like a year and a half. Like I know that I had periods where I wasn't studying Japanese for like a week or 2, and sometimes I'd only study like less than an hour a day. So it really depends on you how much you're willing to put in, but either way I can guarantee you results with this method and you will see huge progress really quickly. And according to multiple resources, the general kind of consensus of how long it takes to reach a conversational level in Japanese is about 2,000 hours. Also, do not be discouraged by those people who are showing you their crazy progressions or transformations learning Japanese. Some people really can achieve it that quickly. I know I definitely couldn't, but everybody's journey is different. Don't compare yourself to others. As long as you're better than you were yesterday, you're doing amazing. Okay, now next step, you need to learn the alphabet. So this includes Hiragana, Katakana, and Kanji. Kanji, for now, we'll leave that alone. I'll circle back to that in a second. Hiragana, Katakana, 92 characters in total, 46 in each. And this is the phonetic alphabet that makes up all of the sounds in the Japanese language. You might be wondering, why do I need to learn them? Can't I just use the English alphabet version of it? And the answer is no. because the truth is the English alphabet cannot express all of the sounds that are possible in Japanese, which means if you are trying to read Japanese using English letters, you are going to be pronouncing things wrong, and that is really going to hinder your communication. So learn the alphabet. If you just put in a couple hours, you can definitely memorize the alphabet in about 1 day, 2 days, and then it'll take you a couple weeks to kind of get used to it and just kind of read it without having to go letter by letter. Are the Chinese letters that were taken from China, I don't know how long ago, and were implemented in the Japanese language. There's over 2,000 of them, and you need to learn about 2,200 if you want to be able to read Japanese and write Japanese. These are called the Joyo kanji, and these are the kanji that you will see in daily life Japan, but it's not limited to this. So I know kanji seems scary, and I know that the fact that there's 2,000 of them is super intimidating, but the trick is to just take it step at a time, because it even takes Japanese people years of schooling to actually learn to write Japanese. So how can you learn all of these? I would recommend learning Hiragana and Katakana on the first day of learning Japanese as soon as possible and learning them as a pair. Each Hiragana character has a corresponding Katakana character, so learning them in pairs will help you understand which ones have the same pronunciation. Now, the way I prefer to learn Hiragana or Katakana is I'll actually show you. So this is exactly what I've did, and I've even got the piece of paper here to show you. I would have a chart, so you can just get one of these online. I've got one of these printed out. I also like to have a video on YouTube playing the pronunciation of each letter that I'm learning, so that I make sure that I've got the pronunciation down as well. You got 2 A's. This is the pair. You don't have to write them out, but writing it out makes it easier. And then I want you to try and memorize every single one of these, okay? Just focus on these 5 for now. We'll go like 5 at a time. I want you to cover up the reading, and then I want you to see if you can remember exactly how to read every single one of these. So A, I, U, E, O, A, I, U, E, O, okay? And then you take it off, and then if you got it right, you can move on to the next one and you learn it. And then you do that for the whole alphabet. It should take you about maybe 2 to 4 hours in total to memorize. So if you spend 2 hours over 2 days, you can memorize this whole alphabet, and then in a couple weeks, you should just be able to read it like that. And then when it comes to learning how to write kanji, I'll cover that in the next step when we talk about vocabulary. So vocabulary, how do we learn vocabulary? My favorite way to learn vocabulary, and I really recommend you do this the same way, is you use an application called Anki. Now, Anki is free on desktop. You can download the app on desktop, and then you can pair it to your phone using the website, or you can buy the app, but it's like £25 on iOS. So it's up to you if you want to do that. Anyways, every morning I would use Anki to learn vocabulary. I'd learn about 20 to 40 words depending on how ambitious I was feeling, and I would do this every day. And just by learning, say for example you learned 33 words every day with Anki, in just 1 month you would learn about 1,000 words. And now, just to put into perspective how crazy this is, they say that about 80 to 90% of our daily language is made up of 2,000 words, which means that in 2 months you could learn 90% of daily language that is used, the words that are the most common in the language, and you'd be able to understand 90% of what people are saying. Trust me, this is so powerful. If you're learning vocabulary, this is the best way to go about it. And the thing is, vocabulary will boost your comprehension so much and so quickly, because the more words you know, the more kind of stuff you can pick up, the more context you've got. And trust me, it is just so good. If you're not sure how to use Anki, there's loads of really good tutorials on YouTube. It's really not complicated. And I'll put the Anki deck that I use in the description, but I know that it is somewhat outdated. So if you look up some videos on YouTube on what's the best Anki deck to learn Japanese in 2025, you might find a more in-date one. But either way, I'll put the one I use in the description, and feel free to use that one. So how is this going to help you learn kanji? So the way I recommend that you learn kanji, and this is the same way that I did it, is through watching those videos, and you have the subtitles in Japanese going along the bottom. You'll be able to read those and kind of pick up the readings from there. But the second way, which is the way that you're going to learn the majority of your kanji, is through Anki. And so let me just quickly show you what this kind of looks like. You'll be doing a deck like this, for example. You want to make sure that whatever deck you get, this is the one I've got linked in the description. You want to make sure that it's got the kanji, okay? And then when you press show answer, it puts the hiragana on top, so that you can read the kanji using the Japanese letters. So when you're doing this, you press show on the deck, it will show you the reading, it will play the audio for you. You have the reading here, which says kyo. And then you got a sentence here, and then this is how you learn the kanji. So now you know that these two kanji together are pronounced kyo. So this is the way that you learn kanji in context with words. Okay, so now that you're growing your vocabulary with Anki, at the same time we need to get the basics down in the language, like the sentence structure, the kind of super basic grammar to kind of form those sentences, and just the kind of real fundamental pieces of the language. So the best way that I recommend that we do this is we use audio courses like Japanese Pod 101. Now they got a website called japanesepod101.com, and you can also use their app on the iOS App Store called Innovative Language Learning. Now I want to say that you have to pay like $1 for like a premium subscription. I think they give you, that's kind of like the version of a free trial, but it's $1 and you get that for about 7 days. I think this is really good to kind of see if this works for you. I really recommend it. This is what I did. I think I paid for extra subscription just so I had it for a month, because I think it's really useful just in those beginner stages. I wouldn't use it for a huge time after that, but when you're starting, Japanese Pod 101 is super useful. I think a lot of you have probably seen their channel on YouTube, which is also really good, but their audio courses are my favorite to just get a foundation in the language. So I would do about 20 minutes on that every day. And then if you ever feel a little bit confused on grammar topics or anything like that, I recommend you briefly look up a video on YouTube. I wouldn't go into huge depth on grammar because I don't think it's super important in the beginning. If you kind of just enjoy doing grammar, the best thing I can recommend you do is watching channels like Japanese Amma with Misa, because she just goes over the topics really well. She's a really good teacher, and I remember I used the channel a lot to kind of go over any concepts that weren't just making sense in my head. There's plenty of teachers on YouTube, so if you want to learn some more grammar, then just hop on YouTube and watch some videos on there. And then obviously Japanese Pod 101 is going to teach you some of that grammar and the kind of cultural expectations of Japan. Now, when it comes to grammar, again, you don't have to understand all the rules perfectly. If you really can't wrap your head around one of the rules, it just means you're not ready to understand it yet. Maybe your vocabulary hasn't reached that level yet. Your vocabulary might be limiting you, and just your understanding of the language might not be broad enough to kind of get your head around this concept. And there's nothing wrong with that. At the beginning of a language, you're going to understand so little that anything that you can understand, you should take that as a huge win, because that's already huge progress. So when we're going over grammar, go over it briefly. As long as you've kind of got the general concept and you understand in some sort of way what this grammar structure is meant to do, then that's fine, because you'll pick this up in the future as you learn the language, and everything will come with time. You just have to trust the process, and you gotta be okay with not understanding everything, because that is something that you'll experience a lot when you're learning a new language. Now, if you're planning on going to Japan, or if you want to take tests like the NJLPT test, I do recommend that after maybe a couple months, maybe buying a textbook could be a good idea for you, and just ironing down those drills. That's something that was never necessary for me, because that's not really my goal. I just want to be able to speak Japanese and understand Japanese. But getting a textbook might be a good idea for those of you who really want to take the test. It's not necessary. I could easily pass JLPT N3 never having studied any kind of grammar rule in a textbook or anything. In fact, I bought Genki, which I think a lot of you have heard, and I just never used it because I tried it and it just doesn't work for me, and I just realized it wasn't necessary. Okay, now moving on. This step is the most crucial part to developing actual fluency in Japanese, and this is exactly how you need to spend the majority of your time learning Japanese. What I'm talking about is the immersion method. Now, the immersion method is basically just immersing yourself in the language and in the culture as much as possible, so that you're just in an environment where you're constantly listening to Japanese. Now, the reason why this is so effective is because it mimics the exact same way that we learn languages when we're children. When you're a baby and you're growing up, your parents are always speaking the language to you. Even if you don't understand it, everybody around you is speaking the language. You go to school in the language, everything is in that language. So this is exactly what we want to do with Japanese, and this will allow you to learn it in such a natural and effective and almost effortless way that you'll kind of just be blown away by the stuff that you're saying after a couple months of studying this way. At some point, you'll kind of realize that you just got words floating around your head, sentences that you've never heard before, and everything just comes to you so much more naturally. The way that we are going to do this is by doing what most of you already have been, and this is consuming Japanese content. So if you like anime, this is a great way to immerse yourself. Any music counts as immersion, reading counts as immersion, as long as everything is in Japanese. However, when you are beginning, there is a concept that you really need to pay attention to, which is called comprehensible input. Now, comprehensible input basically just means that the content that you are listening to or watching is not too complicated and too advanced to the fact that you can't understand anything, you don't know what's going on, but it's not too easy where you're not learning any new words. Now, at the beginning, you definitely want to be closer to being too easy than too challenging. Otherwise, you'll feel very demotivated. So you want to find that sweet spot right in the middle where the content that you're listening and watching is challenging, but not too challenging, so that you're able to pick up new words through the context and the process is really smooth and easy. So make sure that your content is challenging, but not impossible, okay? Challenging, but not too easy. So as a beginner, the best content to immerse yourself with is cartoons, YouTube videos that are targeted for Japanese learners. A lot of them will have like comprehensible input in the title, or they will have the level that is aimed for in the title, and podcasts that are also aimed for beginners. So whilst you're watching cartoons or watching any kind of YouTube video in Japanese, I recommend that you have the subtitles in Japanese. Now, there's a couple ways that you can make this super effective. I recommend that you use FluentU. It's hands down one of the best tools for learning Japanese. What makes FluentU so useful is its interactive subtitles, which means with Netflix and YouTube, with just one click, you'll get a detailed definition and example of what the word means and tips curated by their team. They even have their own course content, which is perfect for beginners, and this just lowers the barrier to entry so much. Because let's be honest, typing Japanese by yourself can be very time consuming and intimidating, so this is really going to help you out. FluentU just makes everything so much easier and enjoyable. There are other tools out there, but they tend to have limited videos, information, or review tools. FluentU, on the other hand, offers a much deeper experience with curated courses, detailed learning support, and robust review methods. You can even import YouTube videos into your account by pasting the URL into your My Library section. It's designed to make language learning not just effective, but fun and enjoyable. FluentU is super accessible with both a mobile app and a website, meaning you can use it whenever you want, wherever you want. So if you're serious about getting fluent in Japanese, FluentU is definitely worth checking out. Plus, there's a huge discount for those of you watching this video, so make sure to check the link in the description if that does interest you. If you want a completely free option to look up those subtitles that are at the bottom, I recommend that you download a dictionary, any dictionary on your phone. So I got the app open here. All you want to do is hold tap on the search bar, click autofill, go to scan text, and then literally just put your phone up to the text, wherever the subtitles are, and it will scan it for you. You press insert, and then there you have it. So if you're watching a YouTube video, the subtitles are usually auto-generated, so just be careful for that. It's not going to be 100% accurate. But your aim when you are watching these videos, when you're listening to these podcasts, and when you are watching cartoons, is you want to just, especially at the beginning, you're just trying to pick up any kind of words that you know, especially those words you're learning from Anki. If you can pick up just 1 or 2 words per sentence, that is fine, you're doing really good. And especially if it's comprehensible input, it should be easy enough for you to understand at least what is actually going on. If you can't, you're probably watching something that's too difficult for you. I think you should aim for at least 30% comprehension. Anything lower than that, you're just gonna have a really bad time. You won't make a huge amount of progress and it will be kind of boring. But either way, there's going to be stuff that you don't understand, you're going to struggle, but that's something that we have to get used to. You kind of just have to get used to that chaos of not understanding everything, and you just got to be comfortable with the fact that you're not going to be perfect and that we are going to make mistakes. And then when it comes to listening to podcasts, one quick tip that I've got if you hear a word that you don't know is going on to Google Translate, using the voice feature and trying to repeat what you heard into Google Translate. And then hopefully, if you pronounce it correctly, it will come out with the translation, or it will at least write it down for you so that you can copy it into a dictionary and get a better translation. I'll put some recommendations here with the resources that I recommend that you use, so make sure to check them out. In short, just make sure that you're looking up words that you don't know, especially the ones that you see coming up very frequently, as these are the words that are going to be most useful for you to learn. Now, moving on to speaking. Pronunciation is a huge deal for me. I always want to make sure that my pronunciation is as close to a native speaker as possible, and thanks to that, now I do get a lot of Japanese people commenting on the fact that my accent is basically native, and sometimes I even get mistaken for a native.
なんか店でも行って。いや、だけどマジで日本人じゃないの。
じゃないです。
そうですね。ジクさん？そうそう。さっき日本人だと思った。
俺もだよ。
And then, so when it comes to pronunciation, I recommend that when you are immersing yourself and watching things or consuming content, practice shadowing. So this just means briefly, when you hear a sentence that you can understand and you picked up everything in that sentence, try repeating it as accurately as possible with as good pronunciation as you can. Now this will allow you to literally just develop a perfect accent because you are just copying exactly what the native speakers said. And the great thing about immersion is the fact that your brain will get so used to the sounds of the language, and you are getting so much input. Your brain is hearing the sounds of this language so often that it just doesn't make sense that you wouldn't be able to output it in at least a similar way with somewhat accurate pronunciation. And then if you supplement this with shadowing, I promise you, your pronunciation will be so good. Now, don't worry about this at the start. Obviously, give it your best go. But if your pronunciation bad at the start, that is very normal, and give it some time. And over the course of your journey, your pronunciation will improve so much if you do this. Another great way to quickly boost your speaking is writing down phrases that you say a lot in your native language and translating them into Japanese. If you always say, by the way, in English, maybe looking up how to say in Japanese and saying, it's tokoro de. So now, I know how to say by the way. I'm going to be a lot more fluent when I'm talking because I'm not hesitating because I don't have the word for by the way. Again, when it comes to pronunciation, I recommend you practice it from the start because this will save you a lot of work later down the line. In my journey of learning French in the past 4 months, I've made sure that my pronunciation is good from the start, but there's one word in particular that I never got right, which was gare, and I'm struggling so much to correct it now. So trust me, you will save yourself a lot of time and effort by doing it now. There's loads of good resources on YouTube or online to find out kind of tips and tricks on pronunciation. So I recommend that you just watch those if you've got the time. They can be super useful. And the thing is, pronunciation will make your perceived proficiency seem so much higher. Like if you have good pronunciation, the people who you talk to will think that you are at a way higher level than you actually are, and you impress people so much just by having good pronunciation. But there's no negatives. And then if you want to practice your speaking, there's loads of ways you can do this now. There's apps like HelloTalk, Tandem. You can go on games like VR Chat. You can go on Omi TV. Literally, there's an infinite amount of choices to practice your speaking. So whichever one makes you feel the most comfortable and you feel the most confident speaking on, choose that one. So now moving on to my best tips. First thing that I recommend you do is join a language learning community. I'm making my own one right now, and I'll just go through this whole process with you, iron out any misconceptions, and just make the process as effective as possible. So if that interests you, definitely check that out. I'll put the link in the description and in my bio. One thing that has saved me a huge amount of time when I'm looking up words is, again, using a dictionary on your phone, using a feature where you can write down the kanji that you see. So if you've got this little tab right here, it reminds me kind of like a touchpad on a laptop. You can write down exactly what you see, and it'll give you the reading for the kanji, the definition, and everything. So if you're reading a book, this can be super useful. If you see something in the subtitles and you can't scan it with your phone, it's not picking up correctly like I showed you earlier, then writing it down can be super useful as well. Now, at the beginning, I don't recommend that you focus too much on grammar or writing, because in the beginning, this is just not something that you need to be concerned about. It's something that you can go back to later on if there's anything you kind of need to iron out. And with writing, this might not even be something that you want to ever do. For me, I tried learning how to write, but then I realized like the life that I would want to live in Japan, I just won't really need to know how to write Japanese. So I was spending so much time for something that I wouldn't really use. So just kind of reflect on whether learning how to write Japanese would actually be useful for you, because I know a lot of us in our native language, we don't even handwrite much stuff anymore. So also, I would just like to mention that reading at the start of your journey in Japanese can also be quite dangerous, because it can hinder your pronunciation and the development of your accent, because at the beginning, you don't know exactly how words are pronounced and the kind of intonation with words. So when you are reading something, you're going to be kind of making up your own pronunciation for these words, and that is going to stick with you for a while. And like I said before, if you're developing these habits earlier, it's going to be harder for you to fix later. So staying away from reading towards the beginning will allow you to develop a proper accent for then when you're reading later, you're reading everything correctly. And then just a quick reminder, everybody's journey is different. Everybody will learn at different speeds. And again, it depends on how much effort you're willing to put in and how consistent that you are able to be. Everybody can get really good results with this. And if you stay consistent throughout 2025, I promise you that at the end of the year, you will be able to speak a decent level of Japanese. And maybe you'll be able to understand like 50% of an anime without subtitles. So just keep going, don't give up. and I can't wait to see what you can do at the end of 2025. Now, if you want courses on how to learn any language and you want help building a personalized self-study routine to learn any language, whether it's Japanese, French, or Spanish, click the link in my bio to join the community of language learners where I'll be on there helping you as much as I can throughout your journey. Hop on the wait list and I can't wait to see you in there. If you're dedicated enough to watch to the end, make sure to comment Japan 2025 and any questions you have, because I'll try my best to reply to all of them. And good luck learning Japanese.